it sounds like, you're wanting to put things out very quickly and get all this new functionality and make sure that it's secure. And yet I can't buy one of these DevOps kits, and I have to square this with my requirements in government to get an ATO. How do you get an ATO in a DevOps process where you're trying to put this stuff out and it takes, months to get an authority to operate?
ATO in a day.
You can do an ATO in a day?
No,
Anybody here ever get an ATO in a day?
3 days.
No.
3 days?
Whoa.
I want to hear that
We
experience.
get ATO in about a week at NGA. But it's
For this process, for something coming out of this
for
process.
something coming out of this process.
So, because you can automate.
Because you can automate everything. We can get ATO in about a week. Now, there's a lot of work going into that week. So let's not think that you don't have to have a ConOps. You don't have to have an architecture diagram. You still need the basic components that go into getting an ATO, right? But we're automating the security controls assessment piece of it so that we get everyone in the room, just like we talked about earlier. You get the cloud guys, you get the platform guys, you get the application owner, you get the security team. You have everybody in the room together for a week, and it takes us a week, by the way. And by the end of that week, the assessments are done. All of the security testing is completed. The controls, any questions they had are answered. You have the folks there that can actually show them exactly what they're looking for, or if a piece of code needs to be updated, the developers are there and they can make that update to the code. And by the end of the week, we come out of there with an ATO, and it could be for a product that had no ATO before, right? It could be a brand new ATO.
But so ATO in a day was a nice tagline.
It was.
But let's back up a second. You just said you're doing routinely ATOs in a week.
We are.
Not 6 months.
Not 6 months.
Not a year.
Not a year.
A week sounds damn close to a day, if I'm making that kind of a comparison.
Yeah.
It does.
And I think
How
one
long
of the
did it
things.
take you to get to ATO in a week?
It took a long time to get to ATO in a week. It took us a long
So
time
that sounds
to
like
get
an
there.
improvement in process as well.
It is.
Leveraged by technology. So you can use the technology and this. If you didn't have this, could you still do an ATO in a week?
I don't know that we could really, because I think we need all of this data that comes together with all of the people and the process, right? Each tool in the pipeline has an ATO. SonarQube has an ATO. Every time there's a change to SonarQube, we do an update and security looks at it. GitLab has an ATO. Nexus has an ATO. Every tool we have has an ATO. So they're checked. And if you use our pipeline, you inherit security controls. If you're on our platform,
Right.
you inherit security controls. And then, as the lady was saying in the back, when you can inherit security controls, it makes the ones that you as an application owner have to satisfy much smaller. That delta is a lot smaller. So you can get your ATO quicker. And that's what we're doing. We're using these tools. The folks that are getting ATO in a week are using the tools. They're using the platform, and they're doing these deployments, right, on a regular basis.
There's a lot of preparatory work before that week starts.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of work
That's
that goes
that's
into
the
it,
release
but it's
part,
not
though, right?
an extreme amount of work that goes into it. If you choose an MVP, it can be a minimum viable product. It doesn't have to be a finished, complete capability that you're delivering and getting your ATO on.
And whether you're deploying in Waterfall or with DevOps, there are deployments that aren't successful, right? I don't think anybody can say every single deployment of every product, and it's really not related to the deployment methodology that determines whether or not it's going to function. Sometimes software that just doesn't work. In a agile DevOps environment, though, what you're rolling back is a smaller unit, right? So I can do a rollback much faster. And there are also deployment methodologies that say, well, we know that we've got a 100-person user base for this application. We're going to deploy it to 10 of those users and get direct feedback from those users and see whether or not it works. And if they sign off, then we're going to deploy it to 70% of our total user base and get sign off. And then if we get all of that, then we'll deploy it to 100. So those kind of canary and blue-green type of deployment methodologies are also an important part of how we do this smaller development and testing and bringing that user into that testing cycle doesn't mean that there isn't a UAT component to this either, right? That's entirely possible with a agile development methodology. And in fact, what you might call some of the user-driven development and some of the agile development is really UAT at the beginning, right? So I do an MVP, I get a UAT from my user. They say, actually, I wanted 3, not 4 drop-downs for this. We make the code change, and literally, you make your commit, it gets compiled, it gets tested, it goes through Fortify, and you say, okay, refresh your browser, right? So that is the level of UAT that you're able to do, so that when you get to production or pre-prod for deployment, a lot of those questions are already answered.